Pearl Harbor. We use submarine, so the only place that's there or
Good evening, I'm District Secretary Nicole Gonzalez. It is Tuesday, December 15th, 2015, and this is a regular meeting of the Dublin Santa Mountain Services District Board of Directors. Presiding this evening is President Pat Howard.
Call us to the order. And please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Director Duarte,
Here.
Director Michelop,
here.
Director Von Heater Leopold,
Here.
Vice President Halkett,
Here.
President Howard.
Here. Special announcements and activities.
Howard, we're going to do a couple of things. While we're at the Aqua Conference 2 weeks ago, I guess, last week, time flies when you're having fun. The district received the Aqua Fuel Hauser Best in Blue Award. We would show it to you, except that we've already put it in the display case out front. So it's outside for you to see. Let me just read the note from President Coleman of Aqua. Dublin Santa Mountain Service District Public Outreach Campaign is an excellent example of the innovative conservation campaigns water agencies throughout California have launched during this multi-year drought. The district executed a hard-hitting conservation campaign across numerous media channels and launched popular recycled water fill stations that captured intense media buzz. The lines at these events were a testament to the fact that solid outreach garners solid public participation. Some of the other finalists were Disc Water Agency, Rancho, California Water District, Sonoma, Marin, and City of Santa Cruz. So we all got to stand up front and receive our award.
Yeah, our picture should be one of those aqua things.
They actually saw the picture of them,
Two other, I guess, fun items. We got a thank you from Brownie Troop 33451, thanking staff for their tour of the treatment plant. Nice to share. And there was another one from the Livermore Camera Club with a check for $200 to the district, thanking us for the use of this facility. So it's kind of nice. We hear a lot of complaints from people at times. Those were a couple of thank yous.
Great. Okay. Public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? I see none, and I see no blue cards. We'll close that item and go on to reports.
So maybe a couple of things, President Howard, board members. As you know, you have CASA coming up January 20th through 22nd. There's also coming up a couple of conferences that we might want to consider and bring back. It's not agendized tonight, but for discussion. There's the Washington CASA conference that Director Duarte, I believe, went to last year. And there's a Sacramento version also that's coming up. My date, that's in April. So we were talking in our staff meeting the other day, I do want to come back to you with those two dates and maybe determine which one we want to attend, if one or both. So just something to keep in process a little bit before we bring it back in. We say, January.
That's a public policy forum at CASA. It's a fairly intensive day in Sacramento, and they'll run the group through the Capitol to meet and talk to various representatives and senators. So it's a good opportunity to see a little bit of the inner workings of Sacramento and how it all fits together.
So we'll let you decide that, and we'll bring that back later. And there's some correspondence in front of you that's outgoing correspondence from staff. One is included, we could talk about in 9B, which is let's see, I'm sure which one, that's the, well, one had to do with extending the drought restrictions, and Dan had crafted the response that we sent to the state on that. And the other one is for CASA. It has to do with a prohibition against any outfall, ocean-borne outfall. So we took a position that completely restricting that would not be a good thing and be very cost prohibitive for agencies at this time.
Yeah, that's Senate Bill 163 from Senator Hertzberg. This is a proposal that would prohibit, would actually mandate a stop of pollution discharges. We've already found out that that would include San Francisco Bay, so it would impact DSRSD. There's some speculation that it may actually be expanded beyond ocean discharges to other types of discharges. The senator was actually asking for comments, so what we've submitted at this point is more intended to be comments about what we think is potentially wrong with the bill. The CASA State Ledge Committee is going to take an opposed position to the bill, but that is because it is a mandate, and while that stopping ocean discharges may work for certain agencies, CASA University thinks that a mandate is probably poorly timed because the state still doesn't have regulations for direct potable reuse. And there are certain parts of the state where 100% reuse year-round may not even be feasible. So there's a lot of concerns about it. So we've submitted comments for the district. Just today, CASA released their official comments, and I think you should have copies of both of those on the dais in front of you.
So this was just an attempt to keep you abreast of things that we've worked on, staff, so we're up to date. And that's it for my report.
Okay, let's see, agenda management. I was curious, we're passing 8E, I believe it is, to eliminate 11A.
Yes, it would, and it doesn't look like there's anyone here to talk about it, so
Okay.
we will eliminate the for 11A.
Okay. Let's see, committee reports, does anybody have anything to add to what's been presented? Huh? Okay, approval of minutes, special meeting of November 30th.
I'll move approval of the special meeting on November 30th.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. That passes unanimously. Consent calendar. We have items 8A through F.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar as stated.
Second.
Okay, we have any discussion on consent? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, that passes. Board items 8A, review and discuss drought management program.
9A.
Or 9A, yes, correct.
President Howard, board members, the 9A is our standing item to allow public input or comment on the drought or enforcement issues and any issue that they may want to comment to review, and you an opportunity to comment back on the issues. So, we'll see if there's any comment from anyone.
Okay, anyone have any comments on 9A?
Keep the course.
Yeah, keep the course. Yeah, there's no motion required. Yeah, keep the course. And we'll move on to 9B.
Hello, President Howard, board members. 9B is our monthly update on the drought. Maybe some key items, a lot of things in there, and I don't know that I updated everything as well as Bert does in there. I struggled looking for some of the data, but maybe some key points. Yes, we had some rain, but when you start looking at the totals, we're about 53% of normal. Lake Oroville was at 43% of normal. People think we've got a lot of rain. We're not quite there yet. Department of Water Resources, well, we're at Aqua put out notice that they would allocate 10% of requested amounts, which isn't zero, so it's only 10%, but it's not zero. And of course, comes out with the subject to further revision after we see what the rain does. We talked briefly about State Water Resources Control Board seeking to extend regulations through October of 2016. I asked Dan to maybe comment on that because I think that's running a little bit ahead of what that letter is included. So Dan,
Right.
talk about that.
Thanks, John. The governor has actually issued an executive order stating his intention to extend the mandatory restrictions to the end of October if the drought persists through January of 2016. So it's kind of a foregone conclusion that we won't know that the drought's over by the end of January. So we really expect the governor is going to make it last until the end of October. Right now, the only hard and fast thing that the governor intends to keep in place is the limitation of 2 days per week for irrigation, outdoor irrigation. The other details are kind of left to be decided by the State Water Board. The State Water Board held a workshop on December 7th, which I attended in Sacramento. They also asked for comment letters before that workshop. So we submitted a comment letter, and there's a copy in your package. It's actually in this agenda item right in front of attachment A. So I went and attended the workshop on December 7th in Sacramento at the Cal EPA building. It was standing room only. There were an awful lot of water districts there, as well as a few environmental groups. There were a number of different presentations that were made. Basically, a lot of the presentations were asking the State Water Board to consider various adjustments to what their conservation goals would be in 2016. One of the adjustments they were suggesting is a climate adjustment. There's a certain segment of the state that feels that hot and very dry areas should be allowed more water use, and areas that are perhaps coastal may not need as much water. So they're asking for a climate adjustment based on 18 or 19 climate zones that have been identified in the state of California. Another adjustment that was asked for is for recycled water infrastructure, and this is actually one that we supported in our comment letter. This would recognize the investment that agencies have made into recycled water infrastructure and programs, so that they would get an adjustment for that. Another adjustment that was requested is drought-resistant supplies, and this boils down to projects like what Orange County has, where they're doing groundwater replenishment. It's basically potable reuse of recycled water. So they want a similar recognition of their investments in those kind of facilities. There was another group that asked for an adjustment based on groundwater sustainable management. That one, I think the State Water Board was really confused about. They didn't quite get what they were going for, but essentially what they were doing is asking for the State Water Board to recognize improvements that had been made in groundwater management that were extending the ability of the groundwater basin in certain parts of the state to be able to support potable water. We'll see where that one goes. And finally, there was a suggestion that the state maybe consider regional compliance rather than simply by individual water districts. And that was suggested by Regional Water Authority up in the Sacramento area. They actually represent a bunch of different potable, or I should say, public water districts. The thought behind that is that, some water districts may be unable to achieve their conservation target, but if other agencies that have the same water source can achieve higher conservation, if it all evens out, then the region is in compliance rather than some agencies being in non-compliance. So anyway, there was a lot to think about, a lot of information being presented. That workshop started at 10 in the morning. I actually left to come back at 3. They were planning on being there until 5 o'clock. So it was a long day, and a lot of people, were participating. So anyway, we'll see what comes out of that. One of our suggestions that we made is that the state wait until maybe April before making final decisions on what the restrictions should be, because no one knows at this point whether El Nino is going to materialize in a lot of rain and snow, or just a little bit. And we thought, we were recommending that they wait until more is known about the water situation in the state before making final decisions on mandatory restrictions.
Thanks, Dan. I think we also heard at Aqua, some of the discussion is the governor's administration is trying to stay ahead of things and press, that even though we may get some rain, we still need to continue with the conservation efforts.
And will they be publishing a synopsis or a summary of what input they received and what discussions we took?
Actually, copies of all of the comment letters are already posted on their website, including ours, so that you can go and look at that. They're planning on having, I believe, some more meetings in January. So they wanted to kind of digest the comments they had, and then we'll find out where they want to go.
There's another update in there that we had the opportunity while we were at Aqua to meet with Yuba. We met also with people from up north around Willits or somewhere up south of the Canadian border that have trying to consider. But due to some restrictions right now, getting through East Bay mud and things like that, it doesn't look like we're going to have any transfers available to us this year. Yuba, East Bay mud, though, all assured us that long-term we should continue to pursue this and work on it, and that they would be willing partners as they move forward. I'm also continuing to discuss matters with Zone 7 and Ms. Gerd, as to make sure we're all on the same page when we go forward with this. So this year doesn't look like we'll have anything, but we're going to continue to press for a longer-term solution. There's another update in the legal section. Special thanks to Mr. Maddow for providing that. Some interesting one. It appears that Met Water is buying islands in the Delta as a potential place for storage of water. Just interesting fact. They don't know what they're doing. The comment Bob included on there, they're also in the right of way of potential tunnels. So maybe it's a matter of easy way to get through. One of the stewardship councils proposed a one-year exemption for water transfers like ours. And the right saying basically it's not a major impact on water availability statewide or liability. So we'll see where that goes over time. And there was a comment in the chance of any federal relief legislation for this year appears, she said, very slim. Read between the lines, it was almost dead. And those are the major, really, updates for November. I would recommend that we consider another motion to find that the need for the drought emergency still continues at this point. If there's any questions about the report, please to handle.
Are there any questions, additional questions?
Just a quick one about the West Side project. So the groundwater situation in front of Sharon Center, we won't get on that. I hate to keep bringing it up, but I live in that neighborhood and I get questions, and especially when it's freezing, I worry about the liability of somebody slipping on that thing. So
That's a very real problem, and we're hoping to have that resolved in another week or so. Essentially what was done out there when the pipeline went in, the pipeline and the compaction that was used around the pipe, we blocked a natural water course where a spring was following the hillside down to the creek, essentially. So our pipeline stopped that flow of water. Now the water really doesn't have a place to drain to, so it's coming to the surface. For a few months there, we had it draining into the storm drain, but the city right now has their storm drain project to improve the project that's going on, so they needed to plug that off, and when they did, that caused water to actually start coming up through Plateau. So we're working with the city to try to resolve it. They don't want us to be putting water in the storm drain during the summer months because that storm drain drains into a swaled area which will grow cattails and everything else, and they don't want that going in the summer.
created wetland.
Yes. Right. So, and actually, we're looking at, we have a sanitary sewer very close. We've been looking for sources of water because we're going to need more water for recycling. So what we may end up with is putting that water in the sanitary sewer during the summer months when we need it for recycling, and putting it in the storm sewer during the winter months when there's no real concern about cattails growing.
It's real easy design. I mean, once you get inside, it's easy to put in, right?
Yes, yeah. Plastic valves and pipe should be able to control it.
And otherwise, it looks like it's getting pretty close. The volume of purple pipe back to Cinnamon Road is decreasing every day, so.
Are you counting?
It's actually been very, I mean, the contractors, I'm not a contractor, they appear, the laymen have done a pretty good job. They're moving fast. Yeah. They're doing a good job. Thanks.
So, do I have a motion?
I will move that we accept the reports and the findings.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried unanimously. Okay, on to 9C, financial statements for the year ended June 30.
President Howard, the director sitting to your left. Keeps time to endure, I guess. Special thank to Karen, who has carried the load of getting the financial statements completed. And I'd like to also just point out that our new auditor from Badawi and Associates, Ahmed Badawi, is present in the audience to answer any questions, and I might have forward to comment in a minute. But the financials that you have in front of you, hopefully you can see that the operating results, these financials have the summaries of each of the funds in the very back, and the operating results for each of the O&M funds were finished the year in very good shape. They were all positive. The expansion funds have had some good revenue in them. We paid off regional bank debt. We were able to also make a payment, on our PERS liability. Overall, some summaries that come from the MD&A, which is included in it, which is the management discussion analysis. Our net position increased 13 million. Revenue was down $1 million. That's primarily a result of lower water sales. Capacity fees, though, were up 16.8 million. Developers are trying to get ahead of the game. I think we're keeping the engineering staff quite busy reviewing plans and moving ahead. And operating expenses, I'll say that primarily water costs from lower sales. Overall, we've got cash of $133 million, even after the $5 million PERS payment. Realize that a majority of that money, though, is earmarked for capital programs and debt payments that we have. So it's, there is money in other funds that we have. We talked about that a couple of meetings ago. There's some new reporting in here, and if we get into too much detail, I'll hunt and ask for help. First new one in here is pension report. We've been talking about that. We've been looking about it. This is the first year. Note 11 has some information that's been increased on that, and there's some supplemental information also included in the financial statements this year, including some additional information on OPEB. This is the first year. Again, we made a $5 million down payment on PERS. That's caught up in a new mystery line called deferred outflows, which something only an accountant can love. There's also a prior year adjustment related to the booking of the net pension liability of $13.7 million. If we get into more detailed questions about that footnote, I'm going to rapidly turn to Ahmed and ask for help. Question that comes up each year is our debt disclosure, and Ahmed has recommended some expanded disclosure on Durwa on the JPAs, and I think Director Halkett has been pushing us for a couple of years to continue disclosure on that so that people reading these financials will understand our liabilities related to these JPAs that we have. And finally, there's a formal communication between the firm and you, the board, and definitely go through any questions you might have on the financial statements invite Alan forward to talk about that specific communication. So if you have any questions specific to the general, please try to answer.
I have a couple.
Before we get to Director Halpin, does anybody else?
Actually, I think they're gonna be useful.
Yeah, I anticipate it will be. Georgine?
No, I don't have any. Joan already pointed out the things that I found of interest, the net results. And thank staff again, because when you think about cutting expenses with decreasing revenue, I think it's a great job that's being done. I know it's hurt in some places, but I haven't felt it too badly. I don't know if staff has, you have to count your paper clips or what, but that was my only comment.
Maddie?
Well, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I do have just some thoughts I'd like to share at some point about some little cost-cutting measures.
Bring them up now, or is it?
Whenever you think is best.
While we wait for item 10.
Sure.
No questions. No, these are very good. A long way since the dark days of 2008. The statement of net position is nice. I mean, when assets are going up past the liabilities and building a strong organization, that's great. I have really only two questions, and they're easy ones, I think. Actually, one's more of a comment. I just wanted to get a thing started with us to talk about. It's in the footnotes, and if you're not an accountant, somebody dumps a big pile of financial statements on you, try to pass all the numbers and fill out and go to the footnotes. That's where all the fun stuff is. Footnote 2, which is talking about cash, page 20. I'm really glad we included this. I'm not sure if the GASB requires it or is this something we do as an academic. It was nice. Concentration risk. So note 2F. So interesting. We have $128 million in cool investments, and about 46 of them are invested in various forms of mortgage-backed type entities, FHA and stuff. That's what us accountants call concentration risk. So basically, 36% of our invested cash is exposed to the housing market. We're doing a lot better than 2008, but that jumped out at me. That's big. I'm not sure if it's a problem. I suspect it would be a useful exercise to do a little investigation there and just reassure ourselves that we're okay.
And we do look at that on an ongoing basis. We even reached out to one of the brokers that we use on a pretty regular basis, and he pointed out that actually the spread right now on some of this stuff is real close to treasuries, which means the market is valuing it very well. If you think of some investments, it's always, I guess, a little better after the disaster. And I think there's been some righting of the ships on these agencies. There's been some cleanup, but it bears watching. And I think this disclosure is required now, this format of having the risk. If you go back a couple of years, maybe above that, there's AAA, AA.
Right.
All that is relatively new disclosure requirements so that the board or an investor can make that informed decision. And if you remember when we did the investment policy some years back, we were very specific about, staying to that A rating. If we get down on the ones we watch a little closer are those ones that get down to the bottom, the A and not an A plus. But also realize there's some limits as to what we can invest in.
Exactly.
And so the market, Karen, uses up life pretty quick on it, and it's a little bit better return, but it's an easy way to, with 133 million.
Yeah, my only concern is, one, there's a lot of A-rated stuff that went south, and because these are interlocking type entities, if the dominoes ever start falling, they all fall together. So it's just something I want to bring to your attention. And the other one is just a little, I'm confused by a note, and I'm being confused. And I may need our new auditor to come up with this one. It's about the GPA notes, so note 6. First of all, thank you for these. These are from whence we can, these are infinitely better. I mean, they're, somebody would have a hard time reading our financials and not knowing we have exposure to the GPA's significant liabilities. These little mini financials, so the thing on the page, on the bottom of page 22, I could get the net position to tie, assets minus liability net position. The operating section is not making sense to me.
So first, thank you for asking the question. Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. And just to answer your question quickly, first, based on your comment, we discovered that one of the numbers was actually incorrect regarding operating expenses. So we corrected that. There was an extra zero there, so it needed 60 million instead of 6 million. So we corrected that number and we replaced the page, and I have the revised financials with me. But also, just to clarify that there are operating revenues and operating expenses, and then there are also non-operating revenues and non-operating expenses in both LAVMA and DERWA. So what we disclosed were the operating revenues, the operating expenses, and then the changes in net position, which include all operating and non-operating items. So we just basically did not want to have so many line items, so we felt that just having the operating revenues, the operating expenses, and then the changes in that position would be sufficient.
Okay, the reason I'm doing this is because some geek like me is going to try to add it up, and it's not going to add up. So we may want to beef that disclosure up. I mean, even if you just state that.
We can also add the 2 line items if you'd like, the non-operating revenues and non-operating expenses.
I want to make it tie, just so.
So that's an easy.
And that's the same for LAVMA and DERWA. That just stuck out at me. I thought I was missing something.
No, that's an easy fix. We can definitely add those line items.
Awesome. That's that. I mean, otherwise, nice presentation. Disclosure gets better every year. I think it'd be hard pressed for somebody to not think I'm
You saw her hands.
That's awesome. I see her hand. She's gonna smack me with her probably.
No, I'm going to say you pointed out a good thing, because at happenstance, Mayor Marchand did the very same thing to some items that were posted on somebody's website and written them a new one at the last LAPCO meeting because it didn't tie. And the same kind of thing happened to them, and it was not on the website that way. So I absolutely think that it's very important to have those other 2 lines there, so that even the basic person who understands just these 3 simple principles will be able to make a tie.
Sure. It'd be nice.
And that's all I had a couple of things I did backwards, but that's all I have.
Yeah. Any other comments you want?
Well, he's got the communications with you also, that's part of the package.
Yes.
Which is a formal so you can accept, I guess, those maybe you accept those 4 first, and then
Well,
Sure.
I could be done that way. It sounds like you were looking for some additions to that particular note as sort of part of improvement, if I'm understanding. Very correctly. So that would be presumably part of the motion.
They're fairly ministerial. I don't think we need to see the document again.
Right. And I wasn't suggesting that. I think it was just direction to put in the additional figures. I think we've already got it. He indicated he's got a corrected sheet that corrects that operating figure. That sounds like you're doing the page.
Correct the corrected sheet.
Yeah. I did. Add to it. Okay.
So you wish to make the motion on that part of it right now, or do you want to do it all?
Let's hear the communication first. And
Yeah,
then
put it all at once. Sure, sounds good.
Sure.
So again, thank you for allowing me. In your package, you should have this letter. It's about a 50-page letter, and it is labeled Artist Communications with Lois Norton's Governance. And I'm just going to walk you through what the components are of this letter. It's really boilerplate, and you want it to be boilerplate, otherwise it indicates that you are actually having issues. So on the first page of the letter, we start by communicating to you our responsibility as your auditors under generally accepted auditing standards, that we're basically saying that we are responsible for auditing your financial statements and giving an opinion to say whether it's fairly stated in all material respects. Management still, however, retains responsibility for the completeness and accuracy of those financials. The second paragraph talks about the plan, scope, and timing of the audit. We basically are communicating to you what an audit would normally cover and the timing of it, which was communicated to management in our engagement letter prior to that. Some of the significant audit findings, we actually don't have audit findings. This is how the standards are labeling that paragraph. But we basically just wanted to let you know that some of the numbers in your financial statements are estimates, and it is okay to have estimates in the financials as long as there is a reasonable basis behind these estimates. We have reviewed the basis behind management estimates to make sure that there is no bias in coming up with those bases, and we felt that they were all reasonable. So just wanted to let you know that. Also wanted to bring to your attention on the second page that there are some disclosures that we consider to be sensitive or important disclosure, and this is a listing of some of the no disclosures that we believe are important. Obviously, like Rich identified, the cash and investment note that describes all the different risk exposure that the district is exposed to. The net pension, the pension liability note, it's a brand new note and it's very extensive. Any commitment and contingencies. So these are some of the significant notes that are in the financial statements. After that, we are pleased to announce that we had no difficulties encountered during our audit. Management was very responsive to us and always was able to provide appropriate supporting documents for the numbers. In terms of corrected and uncorrected misstatements, we really do not have any uncorrected misstatements. There were a couple of adjusting entries that we proposed as a result of implementing the new pension standards, which is something new to the district, and those adjustments are attached to the back of the letter. Management have obviously recorded those adjustments, so we have no issues there. We're also pleased to announce to you that we had no disagreement with management. Of course, throughout the course of the audit, we discuss accounting issues. We may have different opinions on certain things, but at the end of the day, we were all able to reach a conclusion that both sides are comfortable with. In terms of management representations, every time we issue your financial statements, right before we issue that, we get a lengthy letter from management, and in that letter, management present to us that they have disclosed all known facts to us, that they are not aware of any fraud, that they have recorded all transactions. It's a very long letter that we put some reliance on from management. We're not aware that management has consulted with any other accounting firm on matters relating to the audit. If they do, we need to be informed, so we make sure that this other firm is aware of all the facts before they basically provide the recommendation to the district. Again, like I mentioned, we don't really have any findings that's required to be reported to you. We had some observations about some operational matters that were really not significant. They were communicated to management basically informally, and this is what the standards require us to do. If something was significant, of course, we would bring it to your attention, but that was not the case. In terms of other matters, the last part of the letter, the paragraph that says other matters, we just really describe our responsibility towards the different parts of the financial statements. So in addition to the financial statements and the note disclosure, there is also a part called the required supplementary information. And part of it is the management discussion and analysis and some additional information on your pension plans and your retiree medical benefit plans. And this information is not really subjected to the standard audit procedures. Audit opinion does say that we basically just look at the information, compare them to the financials, but we don't really audit the information. So this is just really clarifying to you what our responsibility was relating to that information. I think other than that, basically this report is really for the use of the board and is not intended to be used for anybody else. This is just really communication to the board. Of Of course, our audit opinion on the financial statements is public information that can go on your website and any document that's used. So again, thank you for the opportunity to provide service to the district. First year is always the most difficult. The district was very understanding with us throughout the process. So we will do our best to make this a smoother process next year. And thank you again. I'm more than happy to answer any additional questions.
Awesome.
I have a question. And actually, maybe Karen or John have to answer this. How far before the CAFRA comes out?
I was gonna wait till after you approve this. to
You
say
knew,
that.
huh?
You're almost there, right?
Well, the capper is ready to post tomorrow, except now we have changes, so once we get the revised pages
Okay.
and inserted, then the capper will be posted on the website. But
Okay.
yeah,
Electronic
Joyce,
copies.
yeah, Joyce had it all set, ready to
Are
post
we
on the
gonna get
web.
printed copies?
Yes, we
You
can
always
give you
get a
printed
printed
copy. You,
Jean, you always get it.
I know, I'm on the list.
yes, you're on the list for a printed copy.
Thank you.
So we should have the replacement page tomorrow morning.
Does-
Hopefully that will allow you to stay on.
Yeah.
So does the copy that was ready to post, does it have the fix to 211B? I know there has
Yes.
been a year thing.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, it does have that, but, you know, we'll wait for the updated 2 pages for the
Yeah,
Lavandurwa, and
It should be easy.
it'll be,
I'm sorry, another comment. Since we're so well-funded with OPEB, wouldn't it be nice to make sure that's included in our press release? Because nobody else is at that percentage.
we could do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Other questions? Entertain a motion?
Move we accept the financial statements with the adjustments we discussed for notes 6A and 6B.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good job.
Okay, passes unanimously. And we move on to 9D, authorized task order.
Good evening, President Howard and board members. Durwood has completed a facility study that shows that the recycled water demands will exceed the existing capacity of the Durwood recycled water plant in the next 2 to 3 years. Durwood has requested that DSRSD proceed with the design and construction of the Phase 2 expansion of the Durwood recycled water treatment plant. The Phase 2 expansion of the Durwood facility was anticipated in the 2-year capital improvement budget approved by the board last June. DSRSD will be responsible for approximately 1/2 of the cost of the facility expansion. The expansion of the facility is also included as an element in the adopted strategic goals. DSRSD's portion of the project cost is currently funded entirely by developers through the water capacity reserve fee. Staff is requesting approval of design contract with Corolla Engineers in the amount of $1.475 million. It should be noted that DSRSD's portion of the project cost will exceed the currently budgeted amount in the capital improvement budget. Prior to awarding the construction contract early 2017, staff will request an increase in the appropriation for the project. This increase in appropriation is planned to be funded by an increase in the water capacity reserve fee. An update of the water capacity reserve fee is anticipated to be considered by the board this spring. A second implementation issue is that an additional source of non-potable water will be needed to meet peak day recycled water demands within the next 5 years. This is because the demand for recycled water for peak days will exceed the supply of wastewater influent at the regional wastewater plant. Staff is working on a number of options for increasing the non-potable water supply to meet the recycled water demands. Staff recommends approval of a task order with Corolla Engineers for the design of the Durwood recycled water facility. Staff is available to answer any questions.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I was curious with the fact that it's such a nice project, that you only got 2 responses on the RFP. Is there any feedback on that?
There was one firm that indicated that since they were a new firm trying to work into the work program of the district, that they were unwilling to environment was so competitive, they wanted to pass on a really big project like this.
Is Corolla the original the designer for the original facility?
No, Parsons. Parsons Sprinkled off this.
Parsons took it off. Well, based on the estimates, it's a reasonable proposal.
I'm going to close it, now we're expanding.
Well, thank God. Let's see, I have no questions. See, this is the, all this, make sure I understand. This is that, includes that giant sand filter part of the system.
Yes, so actually, there's a separate project going forward that'll be constructed in March and April to construct a 6 sand filter zero plant. The design of this project is a larger scale project that will follow on that and get built in 2017.
It's actually an expansion of the facility.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? No, do I hear a motion?
I'll move that we approve the authorizing the task order for Corolla engineers.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Carries unanimously. That takes us to, lost tracks. Approve board committees. That's me. Let's see. Well, before you, my thought was, on these committees, was to get it down to a smaller number. I appreciated what Ed did in kind of breaking the mold of the old committee structure that we had, and so I thought this was kind of a logical next step. Down to 3 committees grand total. So there's 3 committees, 2 JPAs, that's 5 slots for 2 people each. So I think it covers everything we need to do. Anybody have any comments, suggestions?
I'm going to put in my annual grumble. I'm finding it really hard to get used to the non-committee structure, simply because I relied on it for 15 years or so. And now I find so many things going on that I don't know anything about. And when I'm out in public and get asked questions, it really bothers me. So while I understand the need to cut and be a little bit more efficient, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's no reason the number of committees and how often we hold committee meetings are really unrelated.
True.
Yeah, I mean, we could have more committee meetings.
I always felt more informed before because we knew what was coming up. So when somebody dug a hole in the road, we could answer what the hole was for.
Well, if you happen to be on that committee, of course.
If you happen to be on that committee, that's true. I used to be on committee minutes, which kept me up. So just my annual comment.
Changes are, I've been a couple times, but I actually approach it from the opposite direction. My issue, I think the committees were amongst, it's not purposeful, it just kind of happens that way, were amongst the least transparent things we did. Because they meet at strange times.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes we meet them 3 times on board member whim, and, you know,
You're
certain
absolutely
members of the
right.
public would view it as a chance for us to sit around and talk amongst ourselves without them being there. So, and the quid pro quo I've given is now we have much longer board meetings. The 17-minute specials don't exist anymore because we used to have everything fully baked. You're in and out. Now I get to spend 90 minutes to 2 hours with my friends here, which I'd love to do.
You talking now?
No, it's good. I just, so, change, I think it's positive where we're headed, but yes, I do sometimes miss the fact that we can sit around in a smaller room and discuss things on whiteboard and whatnots.
And maybe if board members feel like there's something that snuck up on you let us know, and then we can evaluate. Maybe there's another way of communicating things that are coming up so that you're not caught off guard. Because that's not our intent.
Well, that would require probably something in writing in an email form weekly from each of the managers as to what's going on, and I'm sure they don't want to do that.
Well, yeah, they might.
And I'm sure I wouldn't have time to read it.
Well,
Thank you.
we always have the option of when we know the meeting's coming up, and you're not the regular assigned delegate, that you can attend that meeting on. At your
But by that
discretion.
time, I've already been asked, and I hate not knowing the answer.
The real difference is the criteria. I mean, that's what gauged everything. Criteria used to be that everything went to board,
Yes,
to exceptions.
everything
right?
went to committee.
Now, our committee, now it's the other way around. So that's the real thing. But anyway, that being said, let's see if we need a motion. Yes, we need a motion.
I'll move approval of the president's proposal.
I'll second. Okay. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? That passes unanimously.
Yeah.
Maybe just one comment from staff, as Nicole pointed out to me, when we juggle the committees like this, we'll all need to keep our eyes open because it changes all their mailing and sorting lists slightly. So
Yeah.
if somebody's not getting communication, let us know, but she's going to have to do a little time.
I can't tell you how many times in the last year she's posted a meeting, and I've had to go look at the committee assignments, see if those are me.
The next item then is board member items. Patty, would you like to start?
Yeah, sorry, George, I don't think you're going to be real happy with this, but what prompted my thoughts, or my thought process was when Nicole sent out a reformatted calendar and stated that this was in an effort to save paper and all that stuff, just got me sort of thinking over time, and we all have computers, we all have printers. In the overall scheme of a huge budget, it's probably not very big. However, the two other bigger things in the picture are the fact that if the office prints all these materials, we are taking valuable time from people who really have better things to do than collate materials. And B, the cost of a courier has to be significant when you balance it over a year. So my thoughts are, since we already receive electronic copies of the agenda items, all of it, that you could maybe think about dispensing with delivery of paper materials. We could, each of us could print whatever materials we want to bring to a meeting in lieu of a tablet, if you don't have one, and save the district some money and the time of the people who end up doing all the material collation, getting it ready, getting it packaged, and then there's the postage. My only question or concern would be confidential materials for closed session. How would those get distributed? You can't do that by electronically, that's not acceptable. Is it, Carl?
Well, it depends how it's done, but I mean, it could be accomplished in a confidential fashion.
But
You have to spend some time thinking about that. You know, I send an email to each of the board members, so I do that occasionally. That's a confidential, it's attorney-client, but we'd have to think on that and look at the nature of the confidentiality.
But, so, I mean, it's just something I've been thinking about, and I brought it up. I was in the office on last Thursday for a transparency audit, and I mentioned it to Nicole, and Sue actually encouraged me to bring it up, and I would have anyway, maybe not so soon, but I would have anyway. Anyway, and it's just, those are just my thoughts, and I guess I just don't see a need for constant twice-a-month couriers to each of us. Those fees and the people in the office needing to do all this legwork, and it takes the time away from them for what they need to do. And that costs the district money. So there you have it.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but it's not an agenda item, but we could talk about it here. We have talked about it before, and some people do like paper.
Well,
Not going to bring any names.
but, you know, if you can print something out yourself, it doesn't have to come from the district. And you really
No, we
could.
can use my paper.
Maybe we could, maybe, if memory serves me correctly, the first board meeting of January every year, we have a little good governance workshop. Seems like we could easily come to that to add an item to talk about, maybe carrying feet to the board. There might be other carrying feet to the board type items that people would take a lot of time. There's agenda items that we can talk about paper orders.
Okay. Ed?
I attended the ACWA conference with you, Pat, and John, and Sue. I will be submitting a report on that, but I think one of the key sessions that I attended was, I was curious as to how Zone 7 would be affected under the new regulations for removal of COVID. And there was a very informative PowerPoint presented by the director from Coachella Valley Water. And it was very detailed in presenting what they had to do, the steps they had to go through to determine what needed to be done and to bring them into compliance. But of course, the telling point at the end was the estimate that they're going to be spending on that is approaching $200 million. So if there's any kind of comparison of scale between what needs to be done by Zone 7 and what needs to be done down south, we're waiting for the shoe to drop. A very informative conference. My first ACWA conference, I've never been to one before. I've been to the CASA legislative conference twice. As John mentioned, there's a lot of concern within the organization that all of our recommendations and concerns that we bring forth as individual districts and the association itself to Sacramento are sometimes put down as, well, we're glad to hear from you, but we'll think it over and then
We'll do it our way.
we'll decide what's best. So there is a lot of concern that, you know, we're not moving in the direction that we should be, and we're not going to get the legislative support for our policies and programs that we are advocating. So again, just like my CASA visit to DC, a real eye-opener as to how the political process goes.
Or doesn't.
So, Dean,
Yeah, I'd just like to add, before I comment on this, that part of the reason Aqua feels sort of left out is because it seems that everybody is dancing around what the governor wants, and nobody's paying any attention to what we need or want. Fortunately, CASA isn't experiencing that same problem. We feel as if we have some ears up there. We're getting bills amended and things like that, but I know Aqua's got a problem with DWR, et cetera, in the pipeline. What I'm reporting on is I attended the Alameda County Special Districts board meeting last week, and as you know, our primary function is to be setting up speakers and places to meet so that everyone gets an opportunity to visit all the other special districts in the county. We have confirmed that Congressman Swalwell will speak at our March 24th annual dinner, where it's always at over here at the Pleasanton Marriott. We should be receiving save the date cards shortly. I think for sure that it's going to get really sold out quickly, so we should get our registration in as soon as we can. The following month, we're going to have someone coming from Save the Bay Restoration, San Francisco Conservancy, and Save the Bay. They're all different nonprofits. Theoretically, they're all doing the same thing, they just attack it from different angles, but they're behind the no discharge into the ocean and not behind, that's the wrong word. They're one of the leaders in the no discharge to the ocean because they're trying so hard to clean up the bay. The bay is in better shape than it's been in a long time, but it's still not where it used to be, which I personally think is not, that's an unrealistic goal. Everything used to be very pristine and it's not anymore. Also, we hope to be at East Bay Mud in July, and we're going to be at Washington Township Hospital in September. We're looking at two possible things. One, to raise the dues. The dues has been $50 a year for 20-some years for the existence of this chapter. And as we know, the price of dinners and et cetera are going up, and the price of dinner last year was $5,000 and we only collected $3,500. So thank heaven we had a little bit of a reserve, but the idea is to get our dues up to something that makes a difference. I mean, $50 a year to all these special districts is just drop in the bucket. So we're looking to do that. Our legislative days, special districts legislative days are May 17th and 18th next year. And I had a question that maybe Rich can answer. Who appoints to the GASB and the FASB boards?
It's a good question. They're the county yes. I mean, it's.
Is it a federal appointment?
Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't go through the. It's not like approved by the Senate.
Okay.
It's more privately held.
So we could. This came up because everybody's having a fit of having to put their OPEB. I mean, their pension numbers on the financial statement, and it's sort of
a sunshine beautiful.
Well, they were sort of grumbling about all the things they have to go through to get to that number to put it on the financial statement, and
There's
it's like,
usually an exposure period, FASB and the financial account.
They've been talking about this one for.
it's been out there for a long time, but what Roland wanted to know is who he could write to.
Well, the board, I mean, if you go to the website, the board members will be on it.
Okay.
He's not going to get on the board.
No, he didn't want to get on the board. He wanted to find out who appointed the board so he could get to them. Anyway, I think that's all, but it's really important. Keep on your Save the Date days, March 24th. Eric will be speaking, and we hope he'll talk about, we think he's still on the, the Intelligence Committee. We're hoping he stays on that committee. We know he has a lot to say about security and web security and all of that, and that's what we'd like him to talk about, because many of the special districts have no public exposure other than a website where people can look at things they post. And of course, the fear is always somebody's going to hack in and somehow get the financial records and all those awful things that we know can happen. But anyway, that's it.
It's early, but Merry Christmas. If I do my calendar right, this is the last time we're all going to be together before we break. Beyond that,
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Well, I had one of those capital report things too, down to Aqua. Let's see, what have I got? I got a list of federal affairs bills that might be going through. They're all kind of pending. I'm not even going to talk about it because they're all just pending. What I found interesting was I went to an attorney's program about pricing water in a time of drought. And this all actually, drought really had nothing to do with it. It had to do with the San Juan Capistrano event, and that's not over yet, apparently. And the big fear was possibility of class action suits. And there's a possibility that someone will file one and a judge will find that it fits. And I guess that's the really bad news in that class action suits, I guess, have longer periods. There's longer period of time in which to file such a suit.
It's not clear whether there's a statute of limitations for rate challenges. I know that was part of the implementation language that was negotiated, and Howard Jarvis did not like any statute of limitations. Because if people always move in, what could they do? What could they do? So, it's very interesting.
How old is he? Yeah.
Well, no, he's long since passed away, so.
Yeah, referring to the
So-
organization,
so his-
not to the man.
So his opinion matters to everybody.
One of the things I thought was worrisome was the whole, they're kind of challenging the whole concept of tier pricing. And some districts have this notion to get around it. They don't have tiers. I guess they use a thing called 377I of the Water Code, where they have conservation penalties. So when you get above, 10 units per period, you get a little penalty. So anyway, that might be a way on. But yeah, they're really worried about that. We'll see what happens. Oh, and another thing that would be brought up was you have a poor defense when you have a single source of water. And so I was wondering, is Doherty Valley a second source of water? I don't know.
Recycle water is the second source.
Yeah. Anyway, that was kind of what came out of all this. Then one of the things I like about conferences is just meeting up with people. Happened to run into, I think his name is Steve Peterson. He's an operations manager over at Alameda County Water. We got to chat for a while, and he agrees with a lot of us in that there needs to be some sort of a regional approach to this water source thing. And of course, I don't know what his board's thinking, but yeah, we thought, hey, Alameda County working with Zone 7 is not a bad idea. I don't know if that's in your Tri-Valley Conference agenda or not.
They've come up from time to time, but.
Yeah, I don't know what their board's like, I have no idea. But their operations.
They have several sources of water.
Yeah, so anyway, it was a good conversation, but that was one of the nice things about conferences, just talk with other folks. Other than that, I have nothing. So we'll close board member items and move on to closed session. And let's see. At this time, we'll go into closed session. We have 2, as opposed to 3 items in closed session. Item 8A was canceled. We'll be going into items 8B and C. 8B is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to subdivision D1 of section 54956.9. And conference 8C, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. And the agency negotiators are the general manager, and the employee organizations are the mid-management employees bargaining unit, the professional employees bargaining unit, and the stationary engineers, Local 39. And additional attendees will be Michelle Dorado, Human Resources Supervisor and Legal Counsel. While this meeting will continue, the broadcast will be stopped at this time because it is anticipated there will be no report from closed session. If there is a report from closed session, it will be announced open session at the end of this board meeting. If you are interested in that report out, if any, it will be made available. You may contact the district secretary, Nicole Gonzalez, during regular business hours. Hope you have a good evening.
We shorten this.
Pre-recorded, you can punch it, replay it.
Good idea.
Good idea.
Yeah. Have this all electronic, why can't we do that?